I want to welcome everybody. I believe we've begun. There we go. Welcome everybody to Supercharge your Microsoft Teams adoption with the Office 365 Adoption Bot webcast. I'm your host today, Michael Gannotti, and I'm a Teams technical specialist for the HLS, Healthcare and Life Sciences group here at Microsoft. Today, I'm going to be joined by my presenters, Dave Upton and Susan Steele. Susan's actually going to kick it off, and Dave is going to be showing us demos and how all this stuff works. Very excited. They're both with our CSM group at Microsoft. But before we get started, we have a couple of housekeeping items. It's been a while since we broadcast, so we want to go ahead and just make sure everybody knows the hows and what's around today. So let's go ahead here, and we're going to move on to the next slide. As always, this event is brought to you by the Microsoft Healthcare and Life Sciences group. You can always find myself, my colleagues, and all of us in content at aka.ms/HLSblog. That's aka.ms/HLSblog, one word. Check it out. We're going to have a recording from today. That's where it'll be posted, and any resource links, etc. That's where you'll find that information and much more. Moving on. Today's session is brought to you by Logitech Meetup. That's what I'm using right now, the Logitech Meetup Cam. It is an all-in-one huddle room solution that you can leverage. It has ultra 4K image sensing, 5K zoom. I actually have a little controller. I got it covered up right now that I can zoom in and out and pan. It's a great thing. Check them out. It hooks up directly with Microsoft Teams and the Teams room systems to provide a great solution for you. And it is part of an entire suite by Logitech. Before we start, a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, we encourage you as attendees to ask questions. So ask. I will be in the background monitoring all the Q&A. So as you post questions, you may see me respond and say, hey, that's a great question. I'll tee it up for the presenters, and we'll be pausing, periodically to field your questions. All the questions are moderated, so they will not show in the general audience pane unless I share or publish it. At times you may have something I want some clarification on, or we can respond directly to you, but that's how that all works. We'd also love to know who you are and where you're from. So go ahead, send us shout outs in the Q&A panel at any time with your first name, where you're from, state, country, etc., where you're viewing from. We love to give shout outs during the session as a part of the Q&A, so let us know. We love to hear from you. Finally, at the end of the conclusion of this session, the webcast recording, as I mentioned, will be posted to the Microsoft Healthcare and Life Sciences blog at aka.ms/HLSblog. That's aka.ms/HLSblog, along with any resources. Finally, last thing, onto the Q&A panel, and then we're going to turn it over to our presenters. If you're not seeing the Q&A panel, and you should, it should be on the right-hand side. You simply click. It's a little dialog box with a question mark in it. You can click that to toggle between showing and not showing. That's where you can go ahead down below, and you can put in your questions. You can see your name. It's optional. You can ask a question. You can also click post as anonymous. So you have some options there. That's it for my Q&A. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to be kicking this over to Susan here, and let me get her ready in the queue. And also, Dave, do you want to go ahead? Oh, and he's gone ahead and sent that. Let me get that all set up here. And we're going to send Susan live. And there we go.
Hi, thanks, Mike. So we're going to talk about the adoption bot today. We have a demo, but before we start with the demo, I wanted to give you a little bit of background and why. So if you can just advance that slide for me. Thank you, Dave. Teams is really a hub for the Teams work. There are so much that you can do off of Teams. And with that, we are getting questions from our customers, from the end users. This adoption bot was really made to address that, those basic questions. And if you'll move to the next slide, if you don't mind, Dave. It's really part of a robust readiness plan, right? You know, you've got your change management and adoption that you need to consider. You got to consider all of the awareness and training, so the communications that go around it, the trainings that go around it, but also the support. And a lot of what I've heard from my customers is that their help desk can get overrun if they don't plan properly. And they can get overrun if the help desk agents aren't, you know, fully trained as well. So this complements your champion program, your training programs that you have in place. This adoption bot really puts the power in the hands of your employees to get answers to those very basic questions. Microsoft has put together a basic library of the top questions that we've heard from end users, coming from you all, you know, coming from our customers, letting us know what that is. So there's a set out there that you can use. Dave will show us a bit more about that, but this product will help you get to scale, and it will help alleviate some of that help desk overload that you could get if you don't plan properly. So my customers have just started to kick the tires in the past couple months and are thrilled with this. This has really been a driver for that scale adoption, and helps their employees get the answers right at their fingertips in a conversational manner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave. Dave's going to take us through a demo. Before I do that, though, Mike, are there any questions in the queue for me?
There are no questions, but just real quickly,
Sure.
I just got to give some, you know, some recognition. We have an international audience. So
Wow.
we've got Judith from Switzerland. We've got Pietor from Belgium. We've got Josh in Indiana. We have Nicholas in Zurich. We've got Ricardo in Portugal. We have Roman from the Czech Republic. We've got Tim from Des Moines, Iowa. We've got Holger from Germany. We're all over. It's awesome. So welcome, everyone.
And the customers that I've been working with are global customers. So, you know, they're getting great use out of this across the world for their customers, for their end users. So with that, Dave, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll be here to answer questions as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. Thanks, Mike. And thanks for everybody from around the world for joining. It's amazing that many people from around the world. All right, I'm going to jump right into demo here before I get into a few later slides that I have, but really want to show you what we're talking about. And definitely need to say something right off the bat. When you hear adoption bot, I don't want you to go out and Google an adoption bot or Bing an adoption bot and trying to say, okay, these guys at Microsoft told me about adoption bot and I can't find it. What we're really talking about is FAQ Plus. It is a bot that we have available through the app templates that have been created. It is out on GitHub, which I'll show you some of the resources to get to it. Adoption bot, or whatever you may brand it as, is really the naming that you want to build within your organization. What you're seeing here on my screen right now is I'm logged in into a demo tenant, and I'm logged in as Megan. You can see up here, logged in as Megan Bowen. On the left-hand side, you'll notice that what I've done here is I've pinned this FAQ Plus bot right to the left-hand menu. I've done this using the admin controls within the Teams admin settings. It's the app policies, where you can customize this ribbon for any user or any set of users. So maybe you have users that are using clinical work, and you have certain buttons for them to push. FAQ Plus, maybe one for there, maybe one you want to put on there for your entire organization, so that anybody that's using Teams for the very first time, or as they get into some of the advanced features, if they have a question, they just can click right on the FAQ Plus and ask those questions. I'm also going to show you real quick where else you can find it. If you, as an admin, have uploaded it into your store, then your users would be able to go and find more apps and actually download it from here. And then the very first time that they chat, you're actually going to get a chat history, and it's going to go into your chat tab on the left-hand side. So I just want to show you those few spots. I'm going to do it all from this pinned app on the left-hand side over here. But what Fact Plus is, it is just that. It's a Q&A. You ask it a question, it's going to give you an answer. You can do some advanced features, what you're seeing with this Fact Plus bot, where it's not only giving you the answer after you've asked the question. So I've asked a question, here's an example, why can't I create a meeting, right? And it's come back with an answer. You can see some other ones that I have up here above, create a meeting, not even really a question, it's just more of a statement, but create a meeting in Teams, and it's come back with, what it found. Now, anything you ask, why use Teams? Type today, there we go. It's pretty fast to respond. Now, again, this is running off of a demo tenant. It does use some Azure on the back end, as it's obviously this bot is configured in Azure. It's using cognitive services. It's using the application insights. But you'll see I asked a question and right away it's come back with an answer. You'll notice two buttons. This is using adaptive cards. And with these adaptive cards, it's able to take it a step further. Maybe this answer wasn't enough for that end user, so they can ask an expert. And by doing this, it's going to give them the option to submit that. You can give it a quick title. So what were we doing? Why Teams? And we're just going to leave that there and ask the expert. What this is going to do is it's going to actually take that question and that comment, and it's going to pass it over to another team, which is your experts team, at which point they'll be able to take ownership. And I'll show you that in a second. They can take ownership of that request and get back to Megan with a response. And they'll just do all that through chat, which again, you have that immediate feedback to the end users. But again, as Susan said, from a first line, self-service, your end users don't have to open up that trouble ticket to get the response. They can come in here, ask the expert or ask the FAQ bot, get the answer, and then again, elevate it if needed. With that, you can also see, let me scroll up here again a little bit. Say you asked a question and the answer wasn't really what you wanted, you can actually share your feedback as well. So I could click share feedback, again, provide a short description, a title and description to that, and just let the admin or the experts know, this didn't really answer my question. Now they'll also be able to get back to you, but they also have that feedback where they can go tune those answers to go with the questions that you're asking. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pause for 1 second. Do we have any questions on this before I hop into the administrative side for this spot?
We actually do. So I'll just go through in order. The first one comes to us from Nicholas, and he said, "Who built the chat bot? Is that Microsoft?"
That is a great question, and I don't have the answer to that. I know that it's in the app templates that we list out, such as the company communicator and all that. So my first guess is that yes, I actually didn't research that beforehand, but my first guess is that we did build it, but it's up on GitHub. So you do have the source code, so you can go and modify it. And we do have customers modifying it. They're, changing the way that these adaptive cards work. Maybe they've actually tuned it a little bit further. And I'm actually going to have a link at the end of this in one of my presentation or one of my PowerPoint slides that actually shows a customer of ours that just held a webinar last week and really talked about how they implemented this bot. They started building multiple bots, one for IT, one for HR, and then they realized, let's combine all of them into one. And let's provide an adaptive card to let you choose. Are you asking for IT support or HR support, or things like that? So I will have a link to that as well.
Excellent.
Next question.
This one comes to us from Fred, and he asked, "Can we expose this bot within a SharePoint page if we don't have Teams deployed yet org-wide?"
It is an Azure bot, so I see no reason why this bot couldn't be exposed elsewhere.
Yeah, and we do know that the bots can be reused in other places. There's another question that we got from Josh, and Josh asks, "Can I customize the bot per team?"
You can certainly run multiple versions of the bot. So I would say, yes, you're going to customize the bot itself, and then you're going to deploy the bot. And then you could deploy it based on app policies and through there as well. So
then you'd be, in that case, you'd be publishing multiple versions of the bot, unique naming, and then
multiple
calling
instances
those in those teams.
Correct.
Yep.
So, I would also question the reasoning for customizing. Is it you're customizing this, or you just want to customize the question and answer that goes along with it? So you might want to, you could potentially build out the Q&A per user, but even that would trigger you to have a separate instance of the bot looking at a different Q&A set.
So I've got three more. It says, "Does this require any premium features, or is it available on all tenants?"
It requires you to set up some configurations in Azure and storage in Azure. So there are some associated costs with Azure, and we can certainly talk offline on cost estimating for that. But I can say that it was minimal. Some of the estimates we got could be, $1,000 a year for running a bot. Again, it depends on the size of your organization, how many transactions, but everything you're seeing here is basically straight out of the box, with the exception of adding, like I said, the Azure storage to this.
The next question is, and I don't know that we have the answer to this. So is this being layered into Caruana's, and that's Caruana Gatimu, her adoption hub that will be released in Q1? And I don't know that we know that.
I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, we don't have an answer to that. Nicholas followed up, who built the content, the 365 content?
Yeah, so I will tell you from a Q&A portion of this, there are, at least within the group that I'm working with, they developed a 145 question and answer pair that you can ingest in, that we could share with you for that. Otherwise, I will get into the Q&A, basically the building out of that question and answer, and where you can pull information in. You can build your own content. It could actually be company specific question and answers you can put in there. You can tailor the question and answer, so it's also a learning mechanism where you can, you look at the questions that are coming in and you can start tailoring them specifically for your organization. So something like, how do you create a team? If you're using a provisioning process that you've written, you'd want that answer to be specific to that, not the canned, use the create a team button within Teams, right? So,
and that actually kind of hits on, I think, this last question before we move on. And this comes to us from, man, my eyes are bad, Oviedo, and asks, will the bot be continuously updated to keep up with the feature status of Teams in terms of new features, functionalities? And I think the answer is really the bot, once you deploy it, you would then update and customize. Is that correct?
Well, it is using get. So if you built it and deployed it using the get update, then if you're building it off of the master, then if features in the bot are actually updated, then
there you go.
Obviously can get those updates as well. So
beautiful. So that is it for questions. I'm going to shut my mouth and we'll move on.
All right, so you can see I've gone, just for sake of knowing which one what browser you're looking at or which user. You can see I've switched over to one of the experts. So if you can see your picture, there's a team that we created as part of the setup for this FAQ Plus. You build out a team, pretty basic. I have a general channel, and it's really, I only have that you only need that. And then I created a reports. There's some other features that I'll show you that I've worked into this demonstration, but those questions that are coming in from your end users, as you can see, we posted why Teams. This was the one that we did during the demo. Megan asked why Teams, didn't really do anything. You can look at the article that was posted to her when obviously she asked the question, so you know what response she received, in case you want to go customize that. With this, I can chat directly with Megan, which is, it gives you that immediate interaction with the end user. I can also, if there's multiple experts as part of this team, I can change the status of this and say, assign this ticket to me. I'm taking it over. That way your other teammates know that this is being worked on. So once I do that, now I actually have ownership of that. And it says here, the request has been assigned to Maynard. And then again, I can still chat with Megan. I can also change the status after I'm done working with Megan. I can close this ticket out, so we know that that's been completed. You'll also see some other items up here. Feedback. I mentioned that you can provide feedback. So you can, if you don't like the answer, you need more information, you just want to provide that information to the experts, you can do that as well. And again, that same view article, so you can see, based on the question that was asked, the answer that was given, and then here's a description that the user wrote. What version of Teams am I running? It wasn't answered, right? So. But again, as an admin, I can now, that's a question somebody wants, I can go into the Q&A maker and make those changes so that they do know what that answer is in the future. With that, I have also created some reports. So I've taken, based on the data that is collected from the questions that are asked, the answers that are provided, taken and created a Power Automate that will go through and query the application insights in Azure, and once a day bring that information into the team as well. So those experts, if they want to just get that quick view of what's going on from day to day, they can go into the reports page and actually see the questions from here. And then from there, maybe they want to go do some fine tuning as well. And then thanks to another coworker here at Microsoft as part of the team, he's a CSM as well. You know, he wrote all this. I give him credit. This is some things I set up this weekend on my own based on some instructions from Matt. But he also just showed how, you know, you can integrate Power BI. And what he did was he took Power BI, and there's not much data because this was just me playing around this weekend building this out, but he took a Power BI, and based on the tickets that were open, the tickets that were sent into the experts, you know, what were, you know, the questions or the terms that were used within that. So just, again, looking at that data table in Azure, very quick to do this. This is very basic, but this could be expanded based on your requirements as an organization. So with that, I'll pause for a minute. Any questions on the Ask an Expert? And look at this as a starting point. You know, this is that baseline, gives you immediate functionality, but then having, you know, the repository in Git where you can go customize this. You could take this to obviously the next level within your organization and really tailor it to what your needs are.
So right now, I'm not seeing any immediate questions in the Q&A. I mean, we fielded a bunch in the beginning.
I got a sense, Mike, that you have a question.
No, I don't. Well, I was going to ask, what were you going to show next? Yeah,
I'm actually going to walk through some of the setup. How do we actually get this configured?
Awesome. I did get one question though. So you're cut off. I'm kidding. So we have a question again from Fred. He said, "Have you seen customization for FAQ bot to integrate into an IT service management solution after an expert handles the request?"
You know, I personally haven't, but I have heard some people talking about integrating with ServiceNow. So if that is interest, we'll definitely can follow up, and I can dig around with the team and see if anyone is doing that for sure.
That's all we got for right now.
There's no reason why you couldn't take a ticket and push it over to a service, a ticketing application, though.
Yeah. All right. You're back up.
All right. So I'm going to hop right over to Git and just show you where this, and again, don't worry about any of the links. Don't worry about taking screenshots of them. I'll provide all of them after the meeting. But you can see here, actually, and I'm on the main page here that actually has the installation and deployment guide. Let's walk through this and then I'll hop back over to the main page. 7 steps, pretty basic. I did this weekend. When I did it right, it took less than an hour to get this all set up. Due to some impatience that I have and some things I was dealing with my personal Azure subscription and demo tenants, so multi-tenant environments, took me a little bit to get everything working together. But I will tell you, going through 1 through 7, it will only take you about an hour to do this. So right off the bat, it explains to you what's going to get created. So these items here, this is what it's going to produce. The team in Microsoft Teams, this is something that you will go and create, and that's at Ask the Experts team. You will need a copy of the app, the Fact Plus app itself, just because when you go to load it into Teams as an app, there's some tweaks that you need to make to customize for your organization. Very basic. It's just literally going into a text file and changing the manifest. So not, and it's in the instructions, but it's pretty basic. But you'll see here, you know, registering the Azure AD applications. There's 2. You have the main bot, and then you also have the configuration app as well. So you'll configure those 2. I'm not going to go through each setting, but I will tell you that, you know, you're going to set up the main bots, and then I want to highlight this. This is the link that you're going to want to use. So this deploy to Azure. This thing here really does most of the work. It's going to create all those components inside of your Azure resource group. And I will tell you, when you do this, it's a lesson I learned this weekend. I set up my resource group first. Don't do that. When you click on this link and it asks you what resource group do you want to use, have it create one for you. There are some requirements where I deployed it in the East, but there's a requirement for the cognitive services to be in the West. So this will actually default that to the West, let it be the West, and then go forward with that, and you should be fine. I did, like I said, run into a slight snag when I was doing the Q&A. It wasn't able to find keys. It's actually documented in the issues with this bot, so you can go back and research that. But I'm just telling you right now, if you do it, use the bot. have this link in the form you're filling out, create that resource group for you. It will save you time. You're going to give it a name and choose a name that obviously doesn't exist in Azure, so something very unique to you guys. You're going to fill in some fields that you produced earlier while creating the bots. It's going to go and do most of the work that is needed. There's some configurations within step 3. You'll have to go back and set the URL that's created while it was doing that. And then from there, step 4 is going into creating that Q&A that's going to create the cognitive services link for you. So I'm going to pop over. I'm going to pause for a second on step 4, and I'm going to show you what that Q&A maker looks like. And there's, like I said, there's URLs in here so you can get out to it. But we're going to go over to the Q&A maker, and I'm going to take it a step back further and go right to the main page. There's two, but once you've signed in, there's 2 links at the top: my knowledge bases or create a knowledge base. While you're going through the deployment of the FAQ Plus, you're going to skip this first step completely because you've already gone and set up the services in Azure. What you're now doing is you just need to create the knowledge base. So you're going to choose some settings based on what you configured, and then you can go through, name your knowledge base, and then here's really where the meat is. This is where you're going to start pulling in those knowledge base that you have, those key pairs that you have for the question and answers. You can do it off of URLs. So maybe you're going to go just use the Office 365 FAQ as your starting source, or maybe you've actually developed out something in Excel or doc file, PDF or TSD. So you have the ability to do this on your own, or like I said, point it to resources that are already existing. Once you do that, you're basically just going to create your knowledge base. And after you create it, I'm going to hop into mine so you can see what one looks like. It'll open up, and this is my knowledge base. You can see over here, I'm going to minimize these 3 just so you can see what you have here. You can see the sources. So here's a source, right? Office.com. It's looking at this FAQ. Here's another one that was just looking at a doc file that have set up with audio questions that we've developed, right? So if I expand this, you'll notice that here's a question. This is really, ignore that. I like to use this. Why use Teams? Here's the answer. You can also see that I have some alternative phrasing with this. So this is where you start to really train that bot to learn what questions that people are asking or how they're asking them so that it can answer with the relevant answer. You can add additional phrasing from here. You can also do follow-ups, which is something really neat where I can actually, somebody asked why use Teams? Well, based on user experience, when they say why use Teams, their next question is, how do I create a team? So, by doing this, you can have the answer and then do a follow-up. Would you like help with creating a team? And then that'll point to the next answer for how do you create a team? Within this, you'll go through this, you'll train it, and then you have the ability to test it. So over here on the right-hand side, you'll notice that you have a box, obviously a messaging box. So if I wanted to just pick one of these, why use Teams, hit enter, it's going to go and ask that. And you can see even here, there's that follow-up question and the answer. So you're able to test this out, make sure everything works the way you expect it to. Once you're done, you're going to publish it. I will tell you that when you publish it, there's the next steps. We're going to pop up over to the deployment guide. Once you publish it, you're actually going to grab a snippet of the knowledge base. You're going to get the knowledge base ID because this is going to be important when you're configuring your bot. So step 5 is getting into that configuring. You're going to put in the team name that you created, or the actual URL to the team that you're using, the knowledge base ID that we just copied. You can customize the welcome message and the help text. But from that point, you're really ready to go. This is just showing you how to get the team URL. Once you've done that, though, you're going to create the Teams app package. If you remember what I was talking about, modifying that manifest file. Just setting a couple settings specific to your organization or the person creating it, some URLs that you're going to get from obviously the settings in Azure based on the domain. Step 7, running the apps in team. So it is 7 steps, an hour, we'll say 2 hours tops if you're really going through it, making sure all your T's are crossed and I's are dotted, but really doesn't take much to get this going. I will show you couple more things though. So I've created this. Let me click back real quick. First time you go to this FAQ Plus, I recommend reading the documentation. You're hearing it from me, but you know what? Read through what obviously it's meant to do. It has some workflow. It shows you all the components, how everything ties together, gives you the background so you're not just deploying it blindly. And then this is where I was just now on the deployment guide. And then again, you can go look at the architecture guide as well. If you wanted to branch it out, for those that had questions on customizing it, it's Git. So, you can branch this out and start making your own, customize it, download a copy, and start using your own as well. So with that, I'll pause one more second before I jump into Flow/Power Automate. Any questions?
And I'm not seeing any new questions.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
We had one person post a comment. They said they knew of a great solution for Teams bots that their company uses, and they put a link to it. And that's true. There's a bunch of bots are big. So, there's bots you can purchase. There's open source bots that are out there, lots of community project bots, and this just happens to be one.
Absolutely. So I'm going to just quickly show you this Power Automate that I created, and it was just, again, a quick report that allows me to tie into the Azure Application Insights that are on the back end, and I can show you in a minute in Azure those components that get created. But it does make a connection to the Azure Insights as well as Microsoft Teams. It's a pretty straightforward bot. I'm going to go ahead and click. Actually, we'll just go ahead and edit mode just so you can see how this works. I have it where it runs once a day. And again, I'll give credit to Matt for creating this and walking us through actually being able to create it. But once a day, you can see that it makes a connection to Visual Analytics query. Here's the query that I run, and actually, I have a reference to some of these queries as well as part of the decks that I'll show you. So you paste the query in here. You can also, through Azure, test the queries out, make sure they run first, and then come in here and paste them in. I'm just spitting out HTML, and I have it set in query. Next step is to just take that result, put it into the body, and post it to the team and the channel. Now, does two more things, the exact same thing, different query, paste the result as well. So pretty straightforward with this. If you're not familiar with Power Automate, once you have it created, you can actually just kick it off, tell it to run. I'm just going to say here on the right-hand side blade, say run now. It's done. You'll notice that it update in here. So even at any time you can come in and check, what succeeded, what failed. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it tells me that my run failed. And obviously I have an issue with my last post message. So you can tell right here what steps have succeeded and which ones failed. So if I go ahead and click on that, I can actually get in and look at the details of why this failed. So something I obviously need to check on, but gives you an idea though, how to obviously get started with, pulling the data from this bot right into your team. That way like I said, your end users don't, or your experts don't have to go trying to dig into your Azure environment. I will quickly pop over to Azure just so you can see what this looks like. I've created a resource group, and it's just the FAQP. And these are all the resources that get created with that one link that I was talking about. Just have it create your resource group, and then it's going to create this. I'll add to that. Let it run. Make sure it succeeds before you go on to any next steps. This is where I go into my impatience. I've done it a few times, so I knew what the next steps were. So once I saw the resource pop up, I was jumping in and doing some configurations. Just let it complete. If you're familiar with Azure, once you do an action and you have pending things that are being done, you'll get a little notification up here that says what's being worked on. So just like I said, let it complete before you start configuring it. But this is that application insights that I was in, pulling the data out of, so I could see what questions are being asked and answered. So with that, I'm going to pop back over to the deck, Mike. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of them.
All right.
So we have two. And then just to remind everybody, as we're getting close to the end, if you have questions, we have time for open Q&A. So, please let us know so we can tee those up. But the two questions that I have, the first of which is, are there any limitations on deploying this to GCC? I'm going to go out on a limb. We're in healthcare and life sciences. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's the government tenant.
It's the government cloud. And I'm unaware of any limitations.
Yeah. I mean, this is basically an Azure-based bot, right, that we're just invoking within Teams here. Yeah,
I would imagine as long as your admins have allowed you to add apps into the government tenant, then you can add it.
Then Michelle asks, would the Flow connection require a premium license?
That is a great question. Now, I did add P2, but I don't believe it was required for Azure Insights or the Teams. Obviously, neither one of them, I believe, required the tenant. But don't hold me to that. I'll double check on it, and we'll post a reply in the on the post.
On the post itself. All right,
Yeah.
Great. And that's all I got for questions right now. You can go ahead but like I said, anybody, if you have questions, now's the time to start flooding them in as Dave's wrapping some of this up, and take it home, Dave.
All right. So, how does this work? So I'm a CSM, your account. If you have a CSM assigned to you, reach out to your CSM. We can certainly set up a workshop. Part of that workshop is really identifying what are your requirements? What are you trying to pair up from a question and answer? What type of branding might you use? As you'll see on the next slide, the customer we have, I think hers was, they branded it Mina. And like I said, she started creating multiple bots, but then realized, everybody knew Mina, and let's just tie everything to Mina. Everybody knows how to ask Mina. Maybe you want to name it Alex or something else. Trebek always has all the answers, right? So name it, what is the branding you want to do for that? And then really, how do you want to get that adoption across your organization? Your CSM can help work with that to help you make sure that, everyone knows about this bot as you're rolling out Teams. From an adult deployment assistant, certainly me, we're working on getting other CSMs trained up on what the FAQ Plus is and what the steps are. But ultimately, we can provide you the guidance, kind of like we're doing here, but, just kind of giving you that guidance through the Azure provisioning, and then ultimately the building out that custom bot. Again, don't forget, just reach out to your CSM that you have. And then from a resource standpoint, this is really part of the Q&A bot. So I was showing you everything with the FAQ Plus, but it's really built off of the Q&A Maker bot. So these resources that you're seeing here are really samples of the data that can be ingested into that Q&A Maker. So these are all available through that Q&A Maker download on Git as well. I have the URL on the next slide, but just want to point them out so that you can go through these samples and look at the structured data that's in here, and how does that compare to the data that you have within your organization today. So as you start looking at documents that you might have in your servicing system, some KV articles, maybe we want to ingest them in. You could just obviously point it to those documents and just have it pull all those KV articles in. Now you have an entire inventory and library of question and answer pairs already built. So with that, this is really my last slide. So I want to just point out the resources. I've mentioned a couple times about Susana at Vale. That's Vale in Brazil. They're I believe they're a mining company. I recommend going and watching her because she has the learning experiences that they went through in doing this. And it's a very large organization. I think it was 100,000 plus users worldwide. So pretty big organization. And you can see what they did. She's got some architectural diagrams as well, the workflows that they built into the bot, really nice. But you can see where they did the IT support and HR across the board. So main links for the FAQ Plus / Q&A Maker. So, what I was showing you was that first link, which was the FAQ Plus. The Q&A Maker was the link where I was actually building out those question and answer pairs. And then so I showed you some of the analytics. So again, you can go into that Q&A Maker link down at the bottom, get analytics knowledge base. That has some of those canned queries that you can use within Azure. And then ultimately, if you want to build a flow off of those, you can do that. And then I have a final link down here for additional Teams app templates. We're showing you FAQ Plus. This is on this link, but there are others. So as you start to build out and want to look at Company Communicator or Icebreaker is another one that's really neat to just get people in your organization talking to one another. It just pairs you up with individuals that you may have never met, and you can just obviously start a conversation. So there's other app templates. You may decide to take those somewhere else, right? So these are all going to be out on Git. You can customize them, you can build them to your organization, but it really gives you that starting point. So with that, Mike, we'll open up the Q&A, but for this session, that was all I was going to show today.
Yeah, so we've got a question. And it says they're asking, is it possible to test the bot by installing for an individual account first without deployment at the tenant level?
You can run the bot. Absolutely. You can run the bot as an individual. as you obviously installing into Teams, you can set up app policies where nobody can install apps. Maybe it's just the admins that are installing them and then making them available. And then again, you can set up app policies so just that user has that bot. So yes, long answer to a quick question.
All right. So it looks like that's it for questions. So we're going to go ahead. Any last words you want to leave people with before I wrap it up?
I would just reiterate, reach out to your CSM. If you don't have one, reach out to your account executive or even your TAM. They should be able to get a hold of someone that can obviously help you out with this. Obviously, you're trying to adopt Teams. We want to make sure that we're there to help you. So do that. And then obviously, you guys have questions or anything afterwards, feel free to post them and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, so, like Dave just said, if you have questions afterwards, please let us know. The way to do that is actually via the HLS blog. So the recording from today's session, along with the resource links and things that you saw today, that's going to be posted up there. I'll have that up later this afternoon. And then you can just right within that post itself, you can post your questions. I can alert Dave to let him know when there's ones that have been posted. But we do have on some of those, we get some fairly lively dialogues. So we, encourage you to head on over. And somebody said, can you share the deep link of the bot to test it without a package? I just got that question, Dave. They'd have to go through the code.
Yeah, the bot itself, I can certainly share some links with you on that. So there's some, even just testing the bot itself, you can do that. So
cool.
For sure.
So we'll make sure we'll throw those links up there then with the follow-up post. But with that, I want to thank everybody again for more info, for additional sessions like that, to put requests for sessions like this. Please follow us over at aka.ms/HLS blog. That's aka.ms/HLS blog. I just want to thank everybody. So for myself, for Dave, for Susan, thank you for joining us here today. And we look forward to seeing you in future webcasts. Take care. Have a great day. And as always, ciao.